part time. I'm like, look at that.
It's when I get done with teaching twerking in the afternoon, then I go over to the modeling side. Yeah.
What's going down, Roundup homies? It is so good to see you here today on this beautiful. Oh man, the weather here. Where are you, by the way, Clint?
I am in Gig Harbor, Washington. I'm at my house today, actually in the ADU.
Oh,
Good.
You're in the back.
Yeah, we've got above the garage an ADU, another living space, and I actually stayed home from work today because one of my rental properties down the street, I had to meet some contractors out there, and so it's like I'm not going to drive in. I'm going to stay here today.
No doubt. That's cool, man. So Roundup, I'm going to be your co-pilot for today. I am Chris Haskins. My mission and ministry is to raise your financial literacy through real estate investing and entrepreneurship. From time to time, I'm able to hunt down, track, capture, and release my people that I follow here. And Clint Coons is one of the ones that one of the masters at real estate investing. Not only that, but just the legalities and structuring stuff and taxes and making sure we're not buying houses in our name. I have been screaming this stuff for years, but it's always good to hear from an attorney how all this stuff is put together. So tonight, Clint Coons is going to be blessing us with some great information. Clint, thanks for coming, bro.
Hey, thanks for having me. We got a lot to cover. It's going to be great.
Yeah, man. I got to give a shout out to my newest member, Casey Waldron. Thank you so much for joining our channel and allowing me to bring people like Clint on here. It is an awesome opportunity. So Clint and I are going to go back and forth a little bit more of Clint. He's going to talk about so much stuff here. And then as we get toward the end, please get your questions in because that's where the magic is. So Clint can answer your questions. So you can get out there and apply some of this stuff and don't be scared. So Clint, give me a little background, brother, on the two people that may not know who you are.
Yeah. So we already said I was an attorney, so we let that cat out of the bag. But I'm also a real estate investor. I started a firm back in '99 with my business partner, Toby Mathis. And, we started out, it was kind of small, maybe after a year, 15, 20 people. Now we've grown it to 500 employees with offices in multiple states. And what we do is we focus on working with real estate investors, small business owners, and we bring the tax with the legal together inside of the firm. So I have attorneys, I have CPAs and bookkeepers, and it's always with this one goal in mind, is to help real estate investors really find success and understanding that there's a lot you can do if you're a real estate investor as far as protecting yourself. That's a simple one, but also looking at the tax angles that are associated with it. And I speak to this not just from the fact that I have a firm that works with investors all over the country, but I'm also an avid real estate investor. I got a portfolio well over 300 properties, close to 600 doors, different asset classes. I do a lot up in Winston-Salem right now. I've got a big operation up there. But we flip property, we wholesale property, commercial, single family, multifamily, mobile home parks. I mean, we're really active in the investing side because I know what real estate can do. It can change your life. And if you're following things like what you're talking about, the education, once you get educated and you start going out there and investing, applying those principles, you're going to see a market change because you're able to, once you get real estate income coming in, that push every day of having to go out and make money, that all goes away because you can be sitting on a beach. Real estate doesn't care. It's going to pay wherever you're at. And that's why it's so important. What you're doing is showing people, in my personal opinion, that's why when I first saw you on YouTube, I was like, man, this guy's got it. And I reached out, like we were talking about, to my affiliate manager. And I said, hey, can you get me on with him? Because he's teaching the right stuff to people. Because it's going to change their lives.
I appreciate it, Clint. Yeah, that's cool, man. So we're here to validate this stuff and just validate you. And I appreciate your time. This is really, really cool.
Right.
So you got some slides and stuff you're going to go over tonight? Or do you? I know you're good. I love the whiteboard.
I do whiteboard.
Let's do it.
I used to do slides, but I just, I'm old school. It's right. Remember the days when they used to have an overhead projector and you draw on it? Yeah, I always like that. Just keep things fluid. So. Yeah, we're going to talk about, let me just bring up this whiteboard here.
real quick, as we're going, I have a question. A lot of attorneys get out of real estate. It's always good to see somebody that's practicing the stuff right now, doing it. Because you know how it is, bro. People get in and they're like, "I'm not doing it anymore."
That's exactly right. You see, so what you just brought up, I mean, people always ask me, well, should I go down and, should I work with my local attorney? And this is what's really driven our success when it comes to working with real estate investors all over the country, is that we understand what it is that they're doing. Not only myself and my partners, but the clientele or our employees, the people that work for us, are also real estate investors. My daughter, son and daughter, both work for the firm. Wow. And they're both real estate investors. My daughter, she has 4 properties right now.
What?
And yeah, she's working her way up. She's got it mapped out how many properties she needs to fully replace her income, so she'll never have to work again. And so that is the ethos side of our firm. So it's great.
Yeah, passing that stuff on. I think that is the magic. I think as we matriculate, think at Hampton University, we learn this stuff, but then it's like, what's going to happen now? Who are you going to pass the baton to?
Yeah, that is. And I think she's going to be passing it too. But I'm sorry, I lost the train of thought there. I mean, I'm blonde. That happens every once in a while. You ask about local attorneys and them understanding it. I often joke. I said, if you want to test out your local attorney's knowledge, walk in and say you want a house hack tomorrow and see what they tell you. If they say, hey, that's an illegal activity, I mean, that's a dead giveaway. They don't know what they're talking about. And you find that a lot with people who don't invest. If they're not out there and investing, they're not going to know what's going on. They don't know what's happening in the market. They don't know the strategies that are going to work, and they're not going to be able to advise you on what you should be focused on. So you're right on point on that, is that you want to work with knowledgeable professionals. So take, you, for example, there's so many people out there that speak about how you can go out and make money in real estate, but they're not doing it. And so what I think, what speaks to me when I heard you is that I was like, this guy's doing it. He knows what's going on. Because if you're not doing it, you can smell BS real easy.
You can. Yeah. Clint, I have a question. What about the people that go into a real estate attorney locally, and they say, I want to close a deal subject to, and the guy looks at them like they're crazy, Clint? I get so many calls just from people around the country. They're just challenging finding an attorney that even understands this stuff.
Well, so what I would say is,
you can bring your camera back in while you're talking until we get to the board. We can see that. You can bring I got your whiteboard now, Clint. If you want to bring your face back in before we go to the whiteboard.
Yeah. So what you can do if you're dealing with that is just say it's seller financing. You're trying to close on property seller financing, and say that maybe, well, it's not a wrap, but I would probably start with that and then back into the details. Because here's the thing about attorneys, just in general, a lot of them are not deal solvers. They find ways not to make things happen. They overanalyze it, and they don't understand this is a business that I'm running, and I need to get from point A to point B, and I don't want to go to F, G, H, and X and end up in B because it's going to generate more billables for you. And so that, I understand, is the frustration. I have the same frustration with attorneys that I have to deal with. Many times I call them on that. We're just dealing with this with a business sale, and they wanted to deal with the landlord on some leases that the business has. And I'm like, what does it matter? They're up within 6 months. This is a non-issue, but you guys just want to bill and create more issues out of things. And so unfortunately for many of us, that happens. And ask around, talk to other people who invest, see who they use, because there are good ones out there.
There are good ones. I'm just like, man, it amazes me, Clint. I mean, you've been doing it, years. It amazes me the amount of professional, including attorneys, that they won't do this stuff.
I hate attorneys. I mean, even though I'm an attorney, I cannot stand. Yeah, I do.
I don't like them. How in the world?
Yeah, I mean, my son's an attorney. He works for us. And I didn't want him to be an attorney. And my daughter then, after she graduated, she wanted to go to law school. And I said, no, we've got 2 in the family. We cannot handle any more attorneys in this family.
That is terrible.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just, experience. It's like I said, is that, they look at opportunities if they, if they're representing a seller on a piece of property or they're representing the buyer and they think they can shake someone down for money,
Mhm.
they'll take that client on because if they think you have assets and you have then something to lose, they know that is a pressure point. I've got a client right now. She flipped a property in New Jersey and she made the biggest mistake. This is what I tell people all the time. Never rent to an attorney and never sell to an attorney because they're just going to sue you at some point in time because they know they can, because you're not an attorney and it's just their time. And sure enough, she is being sued. She actually made a mistake. She sold to 2 attorneys. And they're going back against her now for failure to disclose, what they allege are to be defects in the property, defects in construction, and all this. And it's all BS. It's 2 years after the fact. They had a home inspector come through. They waived everything.
Mhm.
But it doesn't stop them because they know you're in a position where you're going to have to pay. And so
Right,
maybe
check.
you'll just meet their settlement demands because you're weighing what is the cost.
That's rough.
So,
That's rough.
yeah, it is rough for sure. You don't want to be in those situations.
So, how do you want to go, brother? I can fire questions out all day, or you want to talk about some of the stuff you do and some of the things you recommend for my roundup crew here? We got 50 people on here that are here to see what thus saith Clint Coons.
Well, you could fire questions, and then we could take it from there. If there's things that they have, I mean, if you want, I could just lay out some general principles of how you should start protecting your real estate, if that helps.
Yeah, let's try that. Well, I'm like, you're my guest. I feel like I have a little bit of a carte blanche. For the
Yeah.
people that don't land trust, is it 50 states, Clint, or is it only a few states that you can do this stuff? Because obviously I'm out there preaching and I just have to lay down the law. You're the licensed guy, and this is
Yeah.
not an attorney client presentation here. I know, Clint,
Mhm.
you got probably 1,000 disclaimers you got.
I don't even use disclaimers. I
Clint,
just
why is everybody so scared to come on YouTube? I just don't get it.
because of the attorneys. Now, see, since I'm one of them, I'm like, all right, take your best shot. It doesn't scare me. You want to shake me down with a lawsuit? You know how I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to throw it away. File if you're serious, because I ain't talking to you otherwise.
Hmm.
Um,
Land
why
trust,
are people
golly.
scared?
All
It's
right, we'll get
don't
out
be
of that.
scared.
Let's get
Yeah,
back to land trust. We'll skip over that. Is
yeah.
it 50 states, 7 states, 8 states? Can we do this anywhere, or are there just different regs? Explain to my roundup homies how that works.
I've heard this before from clients. I do land trust in all 50 states, and they'll go to an attorney and say, "The land trust doesn't work here."
Doesn't work here.
Tell me why. Because, oh, wow, glad you went to law school, because those types of answers, they're worth whatever you paid for that law school education.
Wow.
The reason is they're not up on it, they're down on it.
Mhm.
Okay. And and this is the thing about attorneys many times and professionals in general, they don't want their client in a position where the client may know more than them. And so the safest answer when they don't know something is to tell you you can't do it and it doesn't work. And if you ask them why, they're not going to dig unless you want to pay them. I had a client one
Mm.
time came to me because I preach this all the time. I said, you're typically going to be told by an attorney you can't do this, or a lot of things that are creative in nature that don't fit within the box. And if you want them to accept it or get them to agree with you, you got to open up your checkbook, right? Because
Mm.
they're not going to spend their time to learn about something just for one client unless that client is paying them. So they're
Mm.
going to give you a safe answer because they're scared of their own shadow, right? They're afraid you're going to sue them if they tell you you can do something. They don't know whether or not you can legally or not do it.
Wow.
So that's why you typically receive that type of information. As we were talking about before the show started in the backstage, I've been doing this now for 23 years, and I am on well over 10,000 land trusts as
What?
a trustee. Yeah.
Get
We we
out of
we
here.
put rental property, we put personal residence in the trust. I'm listed as a trustee for anonymity purposes. And I could show you. So we're going to be talking about this later about an opportunity if you want to come learn more from me at a tax and asset protection event that I teach. But this is the thing: is that I have text messages I get every week, phone calls, people skip tracing my name. Hey, you want to sell that property on Artemis Lane, or you want to sell that property over here in Georgia? I don't even know who the owner is. I have to look it up because they assume that I'm listed as a trustee, therefore I own the property. And our clients do that because they don't want the disgruntled tenant calling them up at some point in time, or an aggressive creditor attorney looking up their name and saying, oh, look what this investor owns. He has 15 properties. So that's the guy we want to sue. And it's extremely effective. I was teaching a class, 3-day class in Atlanta, probably about 10 years ago. And I was just joking around. At that time, I had this warehouse property down in Savannah, Georgia, and I was looking to unload it. And I just said, hey, anybody here want to buy a property in Savannah? I got a big warehouse down there. It's for sale. And the attorney came back the next day and said, you're a liar. And I said, well, I'm a lawyer. Maybe it's a matter of pronunciation, but I don't know where you're going with this. Why would you say that? And he said, well, I'm an attorney. I said, well, that makes you a liar, because I asked if there were any attorneys in the room on the first day and you didn't raise your hand.
Oh, boy.
I know, right? And he said, well, you don't own any property in Savannah. I searched it last night. And so you told everybody you're an investor, and I couldn't find any property in your name. And well, obviously you were not listening to what I said, but you just proved my point. Thank you very much. By structuring yourself a certain way, people like you can't find it.
I love it. That is so cool. So yeah, we do trustee stuff. So you have no liability regarding that property. You just sign paperwork. Is that how that works?
Oh, not only, I mean, am I the trustee? Yeah, I just sign on to the trust. If property is deeded into my name as trustee, of course, of the trust. So if we put up the, Funky Chicken Trust is what you wanted to call it. It's a Clint Coons trustee of the Funky Chicken Trust. Property gets deeded in. I immediately resign my position. And here's what's key. I always make sure that my clients receive a trustee's deed. All right. And the reason I give them that trustee's deed with my resignation is, for example, I'm flying to New York and my plane takes a digger and I don't walk away from that one. So in that situation, what happens if the client, that's the beneficiary of the trust, and they want to sell the property? Well, title is going to say, well, where's Clint? Oh, Clint died in a plane accident. Well, who are you? My name's Chris. I'm the one that owns the property. I'm the trustee. I'm the beneficiary. Sure you are. Yeah. Prove it. And so then you get trapped into that. And so, I bought and sold properties as you in land trust, and along the way, I started learning, these are important things to do. And so that's how I always structure it. If they want to use me as a trustee on their land trust. And it's good to have an individual. I mean, we also use LLCs that are set up in Wyoming for certain clients, because those offer anonymity and their LLCs going to be in that position. But, having an attorney to some extent can create a lot of frustrations for the other side. When, I've had clients where they try to foreclose on them, they'll serve me as what they think is the trustee. And I'll say, hey, you didn't effect service on this trust because I am no longer the trustee. Well, who is? Well, that's attorney-client privilege, sir. I cannot disclose that. Like I even know. Yeah, but you're right. You ask about signing on. I've even, with our clients, they've refinanced properties inside of land trust before. So they'll go in, they'll do a refi, and I'll still be listed as a trustee, and I will sign off on the closing docs obligating the trust assets. I don't sign off on the note, of course, because I'm not receiving those funds. Those funds gets wired to the beneficiary of the trust. But I just recently did one for a client for about $800,000 with Mellon Bank out of New York on a investment property.
That is so cool. I'm listening to you talk. I'm like, we're trustee for people too. And the moment notary comes in my house, I sign the paperwork. I'm like, get out of here. I don't even know what, where the house is. So guys, this stuff is real. I know y'all been watching me do it. I'm recording, signing this stuff, but now you're hearing it from an attorney. This stuff works. All right. Yeah. I got some questions here, Clint. I mean, I don't know which you want. You got a subject to question here. Or you want to? I'm gonna follow your lead, brother.
No, I'll just take questions. I like taking questions because that helps guide it what the people are interested in.
That's true. That's true. Jerry wants to know. I love this one. I was told it was illegal to do a subject to deal. Cough, cough, grumble, grumble.
Really?
I walked right out. Oh my gosh.
Good. Yeah. Whenever somebody tells me, "Oh, I don't believe you can do that," I tell them to get their believer fix, because that does work.
Does this stuff, well, let's say seller financing, because sub two is getting a bad name with seller
Mhm.
financing with the you're still taking over the debt.
Yep.
Does it work in every 50 states, Clint, or is this like a thing where Alaska or California, they're not going to allow, they won't close, it can't be closed?
I've never seen it not work in 22 years, 23 years of doing this. People tend to invest using subject to all the time. The issue is always going to be in this scenario is the lender, right? If the lender finds out about it and they want to accelerate the note. Well, it's more than that. I mean, the big issues that really came up back in 2007 and 2008, or after 2008, had to do with scenarios where the person engaged in a subject to transaction was leaving the seller in the house and doing a rent back, a lease back with an option to buy.
Yeah.
So you saw, yeah, I mean, you've talked about that. You do
No,
not do that.
never do that.
Yeah. So what they're worried about there is where you're stealing the equity in the property from someone. And so you have to, I mean, you do have to be careful. You don't want it to seem like it's so egregious that there's all this equity in the property. You come in, you step it, flip it, make all this money right away. But I've always seen it work. I've seen people sued over it before too. In those times, I mean, that's just part of doing business. And in the cases, generally speaking, every one that I've been involved with where there's one of our clients that were being sued, it was just shakedowns because the seller, well, many times it was also the buyer. They make representations, and so that's the problem with the last one I'm thinking of. My client told the seller, "Well, you know, I think I'll have this property rehabbed, and then I'm going to flip it within 6 months, and then I'll pay off that existing mortgage." And these guys are just ready to, they're about to go bankrupt. The bank was getting ready to foreclose. They came in and stopped it and paid all their arrears, and brought it current. But the thing is that it took them longer than 6 months because when they got into the property, they didn't do their inspection due diligence properly, and they realized that there was a lot more extensive work that needed to be done, foundation work. So they're about 9 months later, and he calls up the seller, and he told the seller, "Hey, I'm finally ready to sell that property." Well, then the seller ran down to an attorney and said, "Hey, sue this guy. He's going to be selling this property. They owe me more money." And so the attorney, was threatening to file lis pendens and do all that. And at the end of the phone call, I just said, "I don't get this. What the hell is this about?" Because from my position, your clients are going to go bankrupt. They came in, they were going to have their property foreclosed on. He saved them there, paid all their arrears on it, saved their credit. And here we are discussing this right now. And he said, "It's simple. Your clients have jobs, mine don't." It's like, well, then get better clients. And I hung up on him.
Wow.
And he didn't sue. I mean, it was just a shakedown. But that's, it's sometimes little things like that do come up. And that's why using structures, entities, land trust, LLCs are really important from an asset protection standpoint to keep all of your stuff protected from that one rogue case that may come your way. I mean, you have to deal with it when it does, but you don't want to lose everything you built.
Well, there are some people here that may not know, Clint. If I would love to just hear your elevator pitch, or possibly just how you explain sub two and seller financing to just perhaps to a new investor that doesn't quite understand the concept yet. That would be a nice one to hear from you.
Well, I mean, I say, hey, you want to buy real estate and get paid 4 ways? Subject to is probably one of your best options out there, or at least 3 ways on the deal. And what do I mean by owning real estate and getting paid 3 ways? See, the thing about subject to is that, of course, is that when you're buying it, all right, you're coming out of pocket, maybe a little bit of cash, maybe nothing to acquire this property. You're not using your own credit. You're not using any debt. You're assuming the seller's debt, but not technically, because you're not going on that debt. So you're buying this property subject to an existing mortgage. So when you pick up that deal, get the seller out. I said, now you've got a property, you've got very little into it, right? And it gives you an option to then go out there and you can rent it out, lease it out. So that's one way to get paid. A second way to get paid on that property is if you want to do a lease option on it. So it gives you some 2 paydays right off the bat. So you're going to get the lease and you're going to get the option money if you intend to go about it that way. The third payday I tell people with subject to deals is going to be to take that property, because now you're the legal owner of a subject to property, would be to perform a cost segregation study on that property, right? And see what you can to accelerate depreciation. You're familiar with, do you think many of the listeners, viewers are familiar with cost seg? Do you
Cost
talk
seg?
about it very much?
Absolutely not. They do
Okay.
not have any idea on that one, Clint.
Great. So cost segregation is this. You take an asset like single family residence, and you look at the value of that property and you start breaking it apart. So rather than depreciating the asset over 27 and a half years, you're going to break it up over 5, 7, and 15-year property, because those assets do not have a 27 and a half year life. So for example, your landscaping, your kitchen, your HVAC, your carpeting, you figure out what a specialist does this. They figure out what the value of all those various components in your property that you own that are going to have a useful life of something, 5, 7, or 15 years. And they print out a sheet and they say, well, out of this $300,000 home, 35% of it is going to be used up in 5 years, and you're going to have to replace these items. So what you're able to do then, right now, with what we call bonus depreciation that was enacted in the Tax and Jobs Cut Act, is you can take that entire amount and make it tax deductible. So that's your third payday there. Because if you have a house that you bought, and I'll give you an example. So one of my houses right down the street that I was at today, I'm running a cost segregation study on it because I acquired it last year, and I put it into service. So I'm able to do this. Rough estimate, they told me before they do the final analysis, is about $140,000 tax deduction. So the payday is if I get $140,000 tax deduction at my tax bracket, that's worth about $50,000 to me, because I'm able to offset my income by that amount. So when you're thinking about subject to, what's so great about that is you actually, in some instances, I've worked with you before, they get more out than they put in to the deal because of the depreciation on the property with cost segregation. Now, it is. And then your fourth payday is that if somebody actually buys a property, exercises the option, then you make all the equity on that. So I think subject twos are phenomenal. And if you nail that down, and that becomes a strategy, you figured out your lead flow, everything that you talk about, the importance of building the systems, and you can build a portfolio with not a lot of money. And it gives people access to real estate that ordinarily didn't think that they could get into properties.
Clint, what makes this time, and let's just go macro in the history of finance and the United States. I want to go macro. What makes this time so special, particularly right now, 2023, in the real estate and finance business, that could be advantageous for subject to deals?
Well, just look what's going on. Time on market on properties right now is that you've got the situation where homes aren't selling like they were a year and a half ago, even a year ago. And so now you have people who have got into loans, right? And they were buying at the top of the market. They're going all in. And maybe one of them loses their job. Look at the mass layoffs we've had just in the tech side. So these people lose their jobs, and now you got one income, you've got 2 kids, you can't afford that big house, and they're telling you have to come back to work now. You can no longer work from home. So you have all these different factors that start playing into it. You're like, even though it's a great interest rate, I still can't make that mortgage payment. If I tried to sell it, realtor commissions, maybe it's not even going to sell for what I bought it at. Those are the people that are going to be are making great sellers for this, because what you're able to do is you're walking in, they don't really have any lifelines. It's either sell at a loss and then have a deficiency judgment potentially entered against them,
destroy their credit.
Or sell it to you. You take over and you figure out a way to then turn around and rent it out. And you may think, well, why don't they just do that? because that's not how people think. When they're in that situation, they don't see their personal residence as a rental. That's you don't see it that way. So you're giving them a clean break to get away from that, and you're able to step in and keep them in a position where they're not feeling the financial strain of that property anymore, because now you're, as the investor, leasing it out, making the money and making their mortgage payment.
Good time of year, yo. So we're an opportunity roundup, homies, to help a lot of people. Not necessarily, we can make money. You're gonna make money, but the key is, can you help these people?
You know, people ask me a lot of times, well, how do you find deals? And I said, well, you have to approach it with this mindset that I'm a problem solver, right? You find out the person's problem and you offer them a solution. That's how you many times can get these deals put together. You just got to figure out what that problem is. And once you figured out that problem, if you've got the solution to it, you probably got yourself a deal.
Good point. Good point. So round up here, we're here with Clint Coons, just going over some creative financing, the different strategies. That was a beast tax move there. Y'all give him a thumbs up for that cost seg thing. I'm new to the world of cost seg, as I'm learning that I didn't even know. I'm trying to grow, do better. Some people just own real estate just solely for the purpose of depreciating it. I had no clue that that was even a strategy, Clint.
Oh, it's a huge strategy.
Huge.
I was down at Wells Fargo earlier today. I was talking to a business banker down there, or he's not even the business banker, he's more on the financial side. He said, hey, have you ever heard of cost seg? There's ways you can read. I was like, yeah, I think I've heard about it. Move on.
Well, you gotta listen to, we're us new guys. We got 60 people on here, Clint. So some people are already asking. I'm looking at the questions here. Do you offer services? Rosanna, hey, do you offer services in California, Clint?
Yeah, we do. We work in all 50 states,
Wow.
all around the country. I have offices here in Washington State, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, and Cheyenne. And so those are our 4 offices. And then most of I'd say 50% of my staff now is remote.
Okay, cool. So they can reach out. So do you offer in-house tax and legal services? John, do you offer that stuff, Clint?
Yeah, John, we do. We do the whole gambit there. One of the things that, I tell people whenever they ask these questions, hey, can you help me out here? Yeah, we can help you out, definitely. But I'm a big proponent of education, so understanding, what it is that you're setting up. And we go to great lengths to educate our clients. And I actually have an event coming up this weekend on Saturday that if you wanted to join me, or I'll be going through this with my partner, Toby Mathis. It's on, taxes and asset protection for real estate investors. We'll talk about land trust, LLCs, how to utilize them. What are the techniques that we use from a legal and tax perspective? I'd be happy to let them do that. You got a link, right? Did I send it to you?
Yeah, man. So Clint, might as well, yeah. I got that link. Let's see. It's in the video description roundup. Clint, tell them about the thing. I know you got a workshop going on this weekend. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah. So at that workshop, what we end up doing is I'm going to spend the first half of the day in the morning discussing how to take title to real estate. One of the things that we're big proponents of is anonymity. And also you break it down knowing where you're investing. I tell people it's not only where you invest, it's also where you live too. Those are the influences when it comes to the type of structuring. It's not a one size fits all. So I think John, I believe he was from California.
I don't know. John, wait, no, that was Rosanna.
Rosanna. Okay.
Rosanna.
So Rosanna was from California. So in California, you set up an LLC, you can set up traditional business entities there, but the problem is California will nix you $800 per entity you create. Or if you live in California and you invest outside the state, they're going to hit you with $800. So we'll use maybe a statutory trust, a Wyoming statutory trust.
Let's stay there, Clint. $800. Is that a yearly thing or is that one-time thing?
Yearly.
See, I think that's important to stay there. Let's come back to that, but go ahead. You were talking about statutory trust. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll use it. So my whole point is I would use a statutory trust, or if you're investing in Texas and you're buying single families and you're doing subject twos, what of course, not a lease option, but if you're doing subject twos down there, I'm going to use a series limited liability company with cells and have each land trust held in a separate cell to break out my liability exposure. And so it's really identifying where that investment is located. Florida is a perfect example. I mean, land trusts, every client I set up a structure for, typically in Florida, subject to or not, they're using a land trust because you have dock stamps. Tennessee, you have franchise taxes. So it's knowing, because we work in all 50 states, what the issues are. And so on the event, what I will do is I will start educating you about these problems and how to plan around them with various structures. Because we run into so many people, they'll have structures set up and I'll look at it. There's a guy, actually a Tennessee investor, he was paying over $25,000 a year in franchise taxes in Tennessee. And I said, man, you're going to love me. I want a bottle of wine, at least of $500, because I'm going to save you $25,000 a year.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and after 10 years, that's $250,000 because his CPA in Florida didn't understand how that franchise tax worked and how you could avoid it by restructuring, because he was taking Florida principles and applying them to Tennessee property.
Oh my goodness.
And I only figured that out because, I mean, years ago, the first property I bought was in Memphis. That's where I got started. I bought a property down in Memphis, basically zero money down with a hard money loan. And so I learned the hard way because I bought it in an LLC about 20 years ago.
Yeah, hard money lenders are only going to loan you money in an LLC, or, let me ask you, Clint, they'll loan it to me with my beneficiary of the trust of the LLC. Are you seeing anything different?
No, actually, that's weird. Are you looking at my emails? Because I got an email today on that same question.
Wow. What did they say? Oh, okay. So they're like, what's going on with this trust? The hard money lender, no doubt, doesn't like the trust. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, the hard money lenders, so you got to understand, what are they most concerned about? They're most concerned about their ability to go back and get that property if something goes wrong. And so when you throw them something that's outside of the norm, I mean, you can try it, but most likely it's going to be an LLC. But so that even goes into play with the land trust, understanding, let's say that you have this property and you decide you want to refinance a property, subject to deal, you're going to refinance out the existing note and you've got it in the land trust. If you want to keep that property in the trust and not have to remove it from the trust to do your refi, you can do that. But before you go about engaging a lender, and you should call and talk to them, Freddie Fannie will do this. They will refinance these properties in trusts, provided it's not a land trust. Okay, yeah. So only states you're going to be able to get a land trust past a Freddie Fannie type of loan. If you go with a qualified mortgage, if you're doing a non-qual with, say, a community bank, then you have more leeway, is Illinois and Florida, because they have actual statutes on the books. But even then, I don't even think they're going to do it. So my point is this. If you decided you want to refi, you take your land trust and you convert it to a living trust, because these things, you can change them at any time. And I've done this with lots of lenders. I'll just restate the trust. So now it reads like a living trust and not like a land trust. I give them that for purposes of the refi on the property, getting the loan. And then as soon as we're done with the loan, I restate it back into a land trust. And so you don't have to pull it out. And so that's what I'm saying, is that using entities, that's what we teach. And the reason why you come up with these strategies, as you know, is because we deal with it on a day in and day out basis.
Cool.
It's like having a bank account set up for land trust. I've never set up bank accounts for my land trust.
Oh, God.
Because either the PM would pay me if I was using a property manager, send it right down to the beneficiary, or I would have the tenant send it either to a management entity I had or to the beneficiary. But then when you go to sell, title's only going to send proceeds at closing to the name of the trust. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people get worried about that. They say, well, how am I going to collect it? And I said, well, it's real simple. The simplest way is just to take your LLC, which is the beneficiary. So normally you would have your land trust, and then you create a limited liability company down here, and you make the LLC the ultimate beneficiary for asset protection reasons. Mm-hmm. I'll just file a DBA. So for my trust, like the example, I call it Funky Chicken Trust. Well, let's say I have the Red Rabbit Limited Liability Company. It's going to go with the DBA of Funky Chicken Trust. File that, then you can go down and deposit that check that you receive from title. It's not going to get a wire in this situation.
Look at
You
that.
just deposit that in the LLC account. Done.
That's a
So
good move,
simple.
Clint. Wow. Y'all give Clint a thumbs up for that one. That's a beast move. I've been turning in invoices, making the HUD zero. I'm like, these title companies don't have any.
Oh, they're paying, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, what? I want to choke somebody. So, Clint, how much is this thing, your workshop? How much is this workshop for my round up people to come
It
hang
is
out with you this
free.
weekend, bro?
It is free.
Is
Yeah.
what?
It's free, no charge.
Okay, so you're gonna sacrifice how is this 3 hour, 4 hour thing?
It's as long as they want to make it. But I'll tell you what, I tell everybody it's 4 hours because I do the first part in the morning. I always think that's the most valuable content. No, my partner Toby Mathis, he handles the afternoon. So I'm going to come in and give you the legal structures. He's going to come in and give you the tax structures. I mean, I just whetted your appetite there with cost seg. He's going to cover cost seg, and he's going to cover many other different tax benefits of owning real estate and how you can take advantage of them to qualify to reap these rewards, because real estate is a tax shelter. And if you want to eliminate your taxes, it starts, I mean, buying real estate for sure.
Yeah. Talking about wealth, y'all. Income's cool. You know, as I got older, I'm like, I just noticed I was making money. I always earned money, but it just seemed like at the end of the day, I spent it all. So for me, real estate has just been a safe haven for growing wealth. Clint, what is your perspective on just on the aspect of wealth management? Like from my community, we weren't taught zero about management. I'm like, we're just earn, right? Like that's just what I was taught that that's just what it is. And then when I got older, I'm like, shit, I don't know how to manage this stuff. I mean, it's like an epiphany hit me. I'm like, damn, I can't,
So here's what I think. You hire experts. You go to people who know more than you, and you learn from them, right? You invest in them, because investing in them, you're investing back into yourself by doing that. And a lot of people are reluctant, number one, to that's an expense. No, it's an investment. When you're setting up an LLC, you're getting education on how to do something, because that's going to pay you dividends. More importantly, it's like my father. So I grew up my father was a real estate investor. And I think the only reason he wanted kids is he needed indentured servants. And so every weekend, boom, 6 a.m., we're out of bed, we're out on a property. And if we didn't get so involved in sports to get out of doing all this work, I mean, that's just what it was. Then he's pulling us on the weekdays after school. Well, now that I'm older and I look back on the way what my father did, we had a conversation not too long ago last year, and he's talking about how many properties I have compared to, what he has. And I said, he couldn't figure it out. And I said, well, Dad, the difference between you and I is that I don't get hung up on the low value work. And so when you're thinking about doing things and building wealth, look at the difference between what I call high value and low value. For him, we used to be able to buy properties for $1. People were going to tear them down. He would come up and say, listen, I'll take that off your hand. I'll move it. Don't tear it down. It's going to save you $15,000 to rip that property. I'll take it. I'll give you $1 for it. So they'd sell it. So we'd pick it up, move it, drop it on the cinder block foundation on a lot, hook up all the utilities, rehab it, put a deck, yard in, everything like that. Now, who would do the rehab work? Myself, my father, my brother. Every day we'd be out there working on it.
That's right.
I said, so to my dad, I said, you did that and that's great, but that's low value work. See, high value for you would have been to continue to find dollar deals. But instead, you took yourself out of the dollar deals for the 4 months it took to rehab this, and you go out, or 5 months, and you go out and get another one. How about if you were able to hire somebody to do that for you, and you went out and you found 15 deals? Think of how much further along we would have been. But people sometimes get focused on the wrong things. If you're a real estate investor, where's your money come from? Is it trying to figure out how to set up the CRM or do whatever it is, or just pay somebody that's an expert in that and allow them to do it? And then you go out and find the deals, because that's how you make your money. And so when it comes to managing assets, I tend to look to those people who are experts in the field. I don't want to learn it, right? That's what you're paid for. It's not worth my time. I know where I make my money. My wealth is created through my real estate, not spending time trying to manage it and do things like that. So stay on the high value. Know where you make your money. That's where your focus and your time should be, not on the stuff that doesn't make you money.
Okay, round up, homies. We got a ton of questions, Clint. I want to make sure everybody knows it starts this weekend. It's free. You get to hang out with Clint. Do they get to ask you questions too, Clint, on this thing? It's virtual.
Ask me questions. I bring a team of attorneys and CPAs with me. On average, we'll do 1,200 to 1,800 questions during the event, because of the fact I understand the questions you have are going to be off the material that I'm covering, and it's specific to you. And so if you want to how am I going to provide you the most value, is by having attorneys there answering those questions for you as it applies to you.
So the link is right in the video description below. You'll see Clint's thing. You got to copy and paste it. Let me see if I can get it there so you don't have to copy and paste it. Let me do this. Let's get to some Q&A here. We got Andrew K. I've been blessed to hear from coaches like Clint and Chris and Clint, to learn about land trusts and the proper uses for them. But are there any misuses or abuses that we didn't learn about how to avoid? That's a good one there, Clint.
Yeah. Well, there's always going to be those. The only misuses that I can recall were the individuals where they were trying to steal the equity from someone. And you go into someone who's in an elderly couple, typically distressed financial situation, and they have a lot of equity in their property, and somebody would misrepresent the transaction, tell them that they didn't have it, and of course, grab title. So if you're going to commit fraud, it doesn't matter if it's a land trust, it's an LLC, commit fraud. I answered another question today from a client. They said, well, how do I protect my title? If I put it in a land trust, couldn't somebody then still steal my title? So what does it matter if it's in a land trust, it's an LLC, or it's in a corporation that's on the moon? If somebody wants to steal title, they're going to try to steal your title.
Good point.
You can't stop that.
Good point. Prize. How do you show income on your business taxes from your wholesale profits without being taxed? Prize, I know you are not even. I don't know if Clint wants to go. You want to go self-directed on this guy or not? But I'm. Go ahead, man. Let me just be quiet.
Well, we should probably turn down the lights for this answer. The thing is that if you're wholesaling property, you don't want to show the income on your personal tax return, then I would probably be using a C corporation. You have that taxed at 20%. If you want to eliminate the taxes altogether on that income, then you're going to have to go out there and acquire some rental real estate. Let's start using cost segregation, depreciation to create deductions to offset the income you're pulling in from your wholesaling. For wholesalers, there's it's active income to you. So you can contribute to retirement plans, IRAs, solo 401ks. There's ways to minimize it. My big wholesaling clients that are knocking down $1 million or $750 to $1.5 a year, they're all doing it out of C corporations because it gives them more control over their income and keeps their taxes low.
Without being taxed. Prize, that was cool. That's a good question there, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew K., is there a way to find out whether a state requires the trustee of a land trust to be a person, or if we can use an entity like an LLC? Good one.
Yeah, so the thing about using an entity, we use entities in all 50 states. You just can't be paying your trustee a fee for providing that service, because then it's going to kick you up into a different category of trustee. So using your LLC is going to be the way to go. The other thing to keep in mind, people have told me, well, if I use an entity, even though I'm not paying, couldn't someone object to that? Possibly, but at the end of the day, who's going to be the one complaining? Your property, you're the beneficiary, you're the trustee. Do you plan to sue yourself? Because if you do, we'll represent you on both sides. It's okay. More ways to make money than attorney, right?
God, that is too much. Let me put this link here. All right, y'all. So we got here. Let me get y'all the link. I think I messed it all up. It's in the video description. Let me copy and paste. Good. Okay, you got that one. Rosetta, should one consider tax and asset protection regardless of the number of assets that they own? If one door versus 50 doors, Clint?
Good question. And somebody showed me a video of me teaching an event back in 2003. Because back then I used to tell people, hey, take $250,000, $300,000 in equity, no more than 5 properties, stick them into one entity, an LLC, for asset protection purposes. And I did that because I was basing it upon the equity in the property.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started investing myself and I started acquiring more properties. And I had this realization, man, that was all wrong. Because, why do we invest? Build wealth, right? But what's the other reason why we're investing? Is to generate income.
Cash flow.
Exactly. So if you got 5 properties in one LLC and one of them goes bad and they sue that limited liability company, yeah, you've risked the equity, but you've risked something else that's more important. You've risked that lifestyle that you've grown into as a result of that cash flow, that freedom that it's created for you. Mm-hmm. And so to me, the freedom, the lifestyle that real estate has created, the perpetual income that allows me to go out there and focus on things that are high value, I don't want to risk that. So I tell people that when you're first starting out, that is critical, right? So one property per entity. Now, when you reach a level like we're at, and you have more than 15, 20 properties, then you can afford to take on more risk. But when you only have 5 properties, that's a ton of income, ton of wealth wrapped up there for you. When you have 50 properties, you can put 5 in a limited liability company. Yeah, you could lose 5, but it doesn't change your lifestyle. It doesn't change your investing strategy. Whereas if all I do is have 5 properties and I lose all 5, that will change something in my life.
So start how you want to finish, basically.
Yes. It's a good way to put it.
I always tell my roundup homies that with your tenants. Start with your tenants how you want to finish. If you start giving them stuff at the beginning, you'll be giving the whole time.
That's awesome. I'm going to steal that one. I love it.
I can read Clint's mind. I'm seeing his mind go back through a tenant that he probably gave something to at the beginning of the relationship. And
tenants, employees, it doesn't matter. It's always the same. Then they just ask for more.
Guys, listen, the links in the video description. We're going to keep going here. Clint, I hope that'll pull his hair out. We're going to keep going here, but the link is in the video description for Clint's free tax and asset protection workshop. He's going to be going over a ton of stuff, and it's this weekend. It's virtual. You can watch it right there at your home. That link is right there below. So get signed up with Clint's thing and learn. You can learn a bunch. Chris Birch, he's in Maryland. I've been pulled out of a closing. Attorney says Maryland doesn't recognize ownership of a land trust. My reply is that Maryland has never ruled yes or no. We always closed.
Exactly.
Golly. Yeah, we did a deal with him. I think, yeah.
Well, here's one thing, when you're referring to the trust, don't ever call it a land trust.
Call it a trust.
Just call it a trust. Well, what type of trust? That's set up for estate planning purposes.
And be quiet.
Yep.
Just be quiet. Nick P. My lender said they won't allow me to put my investment into an LLC. Why not? I have a mortgage that is my personal name now. What can I do? That's like Clint handled that one there. It's weird because I'm like, do you know you can change the title at any time? Yeah. So go ahead, Clint. I'm done, man. I'm quiet.
Well, first thing is, don't ask permission. Always ask forgiveness.
Forgiveness. What does that mean, Clint?
I hear those kids in the background. They know this. We all knew it growing up, but then we forget it, right? You think, if I put that property in and the lender finds out about it, they're going to accelerate my note and call it due. No, lenders are not in the business of accelerating notes because that doesn't look good on their balance sheet, the fact that they had to go and accelerate a note. So they're going to try to avoid that at all costs, which means that they're going to give you an option to put the property title back in your name, right? And just straighten it out. In 23 years. I've only seen this happen twice where a lender has accelerated a note, which means client was actually, these weren't even clients. A person transferred into a limited liability company, lender came in and they said, oh, under your mortgage agreement, it states that if you transfer title of the property, that we have the right to accelerate this note, make it all due and payable now. So you have to refinance it or we're going to take it. In those two instances, it had to do with the owner of the property not insuring the property in one instance. In the second instance, they were delinquent on their payments. So it had nothing to do with the fact you transferred in. So whenever I hear someone say, well, my lender told me that I can't transfer my property, I'd want to know what type of mortgage it is. Because if it's underwritten under Freddie or Fannie, you're allowed to transfer your property into an LLC. The only time you have to wait is if it was a personal residence and you bought it as such, then you have to wait a year before Freddie Fannie guidelines permit you, or through underwriting, to move it in. Second thing, that the workaround for this, if that makes you nervous and you're concerned about it, put it into a land trust. Just put it into a land trust and then put the land trust as sign the beneficial interest over to the LLC. And that's kind of what we're talking about with subject to. You're doing the same thing. And the lenders won't even bat an eye when you're using a land trust because they assume that it's a living trust, provided you don't use the word land in the trust name. So you wouldn't call it, the 135 land trust. Only time I use the word land in a trust name if it's in Illinois or Florida. Those are the only two states I will do that with. Everything else, I just leave it out. Just trust. Boom. And never ask the lender, all right, can I do something? Because many times the answer you're going to receive is no. And the reason why you're receiving that answer is because they don't know what the right answer is. And no is the safest answer to protect the lender, protect the institution. That's how I've approached it.
I hope he helped you with that. That's a good one. Harold. So Harold, he kind of did that one. Harold, he answered your question there too with that dual and sale thing. Andrew deeds of properties to land. Andrew always deeds of properties into a land trust and never in her name, and that helped to protect her. Okay, good. On this Harold, on a sub 2 deal that has an arrears, that's cool with me. To close the deal 10 or so after catching the arrears, or can I? Is it safer to close the deal 10 or so after catching the arrears?
After catching the arrears up, maybe is what he's asking. Do you close? Do you get them all cut up and then wait a season at a period of time before moving it in?
Oh, before you closing it right there, or wait. Go ahead, Clint.
I'm curious what you're going to say.
I have bought houses and left. I'm telling y'all, I'm just telling you what I do, right? I'm not here. I'm just talking as your friend, right? I don't want to be trainer tonight. I'm just friend. I bought houses, dude. I'll never forget. My mentor was like, Chris, just leave it 3 months behind. I mean, why are you even bringing it? I used to always bring them current. I'm like, then I started just leaving them behind. I've done that. I bought them where the seller has paid some on the rears, and then I left it there, and I bought them current. I've done several different ways, man. Really, it's all about your risk tolerance. I think the less you get, Clint, the less I do not care one iota whether the lender call. It's like I feel like if you don't care, then the lender. I mean, I don't even I don't lose any sleep on a lender calling a loan due. I don't know, man.
Yeah. So in a situation like that, there's a couple of ways I would analyze it. If there's arrears on the property and you're buying it, what is the expectation of the seller? If you're talking about bringing those arrears current, how long is it going to take you? Because what could happen is that seller now sold you the property. You're supposed to bring it current. They turn around 5 months later, 4 months later, they're trying to buy a new property. Yeah, this is still showing up on their credit, but it shows that they're in arrears. It may impair their ability. So then if they went to an attorney, the attorney may come after you and say, all right, what you're doing by not bringing this current per the terms of the agreement is you're hurting their credit. And that's now they have opportunity loss and they can manufacture some damages. So there's an argument there that could be made. Not saying it's a winning argument, but that's where they're going to come at you if they wanted to. If you were going to bring the arrears up and you did it before you had control of the property, that's a big problem. So if you're going to do that, the first thing I would want to get is a notice of interest that's recorded against the property to protect me. So I'd have an LLC set up, and I would have them, I'd record a memorandum of interest against that property. So it at least puts title and anyone else on notice that if this seller backs out of something, I've put money into this deal to bring the arrears current, and they're trying to get out of selling me the property, at least they can't go to sell it to somebody else without me getting paid. So I would be real careful if you were to do it before you had actual control.
Yeah, maybe I need to make sure I'm clear. I have never paid anybody's mortgage before I got the title. I mean, good gracious, that's a little, that might be pushing me.
That's
But Clint, go ahead.
That's risky.
Clint, I have bought houses and put in the documents your loan staying
In arrears?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just
Could be a little shaky.
Well, I've had a client go through that before.
All right, we'll leave that one alone. I'm gonna do that one again then.
Yeah.
Roundup, thanks for coming there. We got a few more questions. We're here with Clint Coons talking about real estate. Actually, we segued over to creative real estate financing subject to trust. He's going to be having his free real estate tax protection, real estate tax and asset protection workshop this weekend. What time are you starting off, Clint?
9 a.m. Pacific time. And we'll end about 3 o'clock as well.
9 a.m. Pacific, so that's 12 noon. So they're doing 12 noon EST, you guys. So get signed up. The link is in the video description. Do not waste your time. It's absolutely free. If you sign up now, he's probably going to make sure he sends you emails to remind you and all that stuff. So don't wait. Don't wait.
Great. If you're on the East Coast, it's past noon. You can start watching me drinking a beer.
There you go. Get all your stuff done, and you can learn for the rest of the day.
That's right. You're on the West Coast. It's bloodies and mimosas. So
Jerry wants to know, I've got a property subject to in a trust. Good for you. But I can't seem to get insurance on it. Got a tenant buyer in it now. Good. This dude's doing it. Have a year left before they buy. Any suggestions for insuring the property, Clint?
Yeah, I would hit up National Real Estate Insurance Group, Sean Waddell, or I'd go to Chubb to get insurance on that property.
I have yet to see NREG deny a deal. I mean, have you seen them turn somebody down before, Clint? I don't know about that yet.
They're so easy to work with.
They are, dude.
Yeah.
They're the real estate invest. That's what they're called, National Real Estate Investors Group or something. I don't know. Get signed up with that, Jerry. All right, Rosanna, how do you know if cost seg would be beneficial for your property? It's not cheap. She knows it costs. That's right. It costs, Clint. How much does that stuff cost?
Well, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500. But here's the thing: if you're doing it, look at Cost Seg Authority. That's who I would recommend you. Cost Seg Authority. Reach out to them. What they'll ask you for is your property address. They'll run an analysis on the property and tell you. Well, they're going to ask you for your settlement statement or any information you have on the property. You can provide them, but they're going to want to know, or they're going to tell you about what they think they could get you. Now, when they send that back to you, they'll say, hey, it's not worth it based on what it's going to cost, because they're not going to send anybody out to your property. They actually put boots on the ground where they'll go out there and write up their evaluation. They have to have access to the property to do this, because if you get audited, that's what's going to protect you. There's some companies that will do it online. You just give them the information. It'll spit out a report based upon comps in the area and what they determine that property to be worth. You can go either way. Those will run you maybe $700 to have one of those prepared. Chances of being audited are really small. So you can choose which way to go. I prefer to work with Cost Seg Authority because of the fact that they'll give me an upfront analysis before pulling the trigger.
Sweet. Chris Bell, if you take title personally, which all of us have done, and then transfer to an entity, have we missed the anonymity part of the protection, Clint?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're in the chain of title, all right? Everyone's made that mistake. I've done that, right? So you're in the chain of title. You move the property out of your name. You get it into the trust. And so if somebody were looking, typically they look who is currently on title. When I jump on First American and I go and I run an asset search on a title for a piece of property, who do you see? You see the current owner on title on the screen. If you want to know who the prior owners are, you got to dig and you got to order up those reports. Most
Spend
people
some
don't do
money.
that. That's
Spend some
money.
money.
They're just looking who's on title at that it's listed. So I wouldn't worry
Chris
about it.
Bell, yeah, I would say, man, being off title now is better than,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit, you can't help it. Once you're done it, it's done it. But you're not on title now, though, brother. So somebody's already working with you guys. Ayo Deji says, works with you, Anderson Advisors. Great company, Clint.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Clint, you know any realtors in Montana that acquire sub 2? He's paranoid being a licensed agent. Oh, boy.
I do not know of any.
Yeah.
Not to say that we don't have them. But we have a lot of clients and yeah, I don't know.
Clint Wilson and Wilson says, thank you so much. Can you explain the difference between a land trust and a living trust? That's a great
Absolutely.
question.
So simplest way to think about it is a land trust, you can move it around while you're alive. It's like shares in a corporation. Whoever you give the shares to, they become the shareholder, the owner of that company. With a living trust, nothing transfers as far as the assets are concerned until you've passed on, and then they pass on to your beneficiaries. You cannot physically change or take your living trust and convert it to shares, or what we have with the land trust called beneficial interest, and just start passing on your living trust while you're alive. So I think that's the simplest way to understand them, although they're both considered grantor trusts because you create the trust. And the land trust can have an estate planning component. You can name a beneficiary. In our trust, we have typically you're going to name your heirs at law as the beneficiary, so it would meet the necessary requirements for such. But the main difference is land trust, fungible, can be transferred anywhere you want. Ownership. Living trust is not. It's static. It stays there until you passed away.
Got it. So we've had Clint on here for an hour and some change. Clint, thank you, my friend. There's a million more questions. We could go all night, man. Hold on here a second. So we got his workshop. Listen, it's in the video description below. Get signed up. Do it now so you don't have to worry about thinking about it later in the week. Just go right there, click it, go over there, hit the button. You got 2 dates on here, Clint.
And we've got 2 coming up.
11th and the 25th. I didn't see that.
And I work too darn hard.
Are they the same? Or can they pick the date that they want?
Yeah, they can pick either one they want to go to.
Okay, cool. So the dates here, you get 2 different ones to choose from, guys. If you can't make it to the first one, then there's one coming up. Either way, get informed. The man's going to be teaching for 3 hours. Get your questions answered there. Clint, it's been an honor to have you, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed this. Good back and forth.
I feel terrible. I didn't get my whiteboard, man. Is there anything that you need to show us quickly on the whiteboard, dude? I'm like, darn.
Come to the event. You're going to get more whiteboard than you've probably ever seen before, because that's how I teach. Everything I do is I've drawn it out. It's free form.
Cool. All right. And Sandrika signed up. Andrew K signed up. Cool, man. You guys get over there. Represent the real estate roundup homies. Thank you, Clint. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Clint. So it's good to see you, y'all. One more time, the tax and asset protection workshops coming up. The links are right there. Don't miss it. It's right below. I look forward to seeing you there too.
All right,
Clint. You want to leave anything else? Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're the main guy here. Anything else you want to share with us before we cut out of here?
All I would tell people is, if you're out there and you're invested in real estate, there is risk with it. And to think that, hey, insurance is going to protect me, you got to think again, because a lot of the time, ways in which people get sued, insurance does not even cover the claims that are being brought. And the techniques that Chris is teaching you using land trust, those are all really important. Those are the same strategies that I use in my own investing. I use those for my clients. More importantly, by getting educated and coming to his channel and learning about this and engaging, that's truly is what I believe is going to help you, because you got to have a mentor. Every successful person at some point in their life has used a mentor, used a coach to help get them to where they want to be. And I adopted the arrogant approach at one point in time until I started digging into this and finding different people that could help me in different areas of my business, of my investing. And it really helps propel you. So,
Yeah.
best of success.
Cool. Sounds good. Okay, guys, make sure you subscribe, share this information with anybody else that's getting in the real estate business. They should start how you finish. I wish I would have knew this stuff when I first started. And hit that like button for optimization purposes. It's good to see you guys signed up. Who's in C row signed up? Okay, round up. I see you on the next video. Peace.